going to continue from where I left off yesterday. I figured out what the problem was, and it was just that when you install the export template from the website and you build the code, if you have built the code from source, then what's going to happen is that the Godot is going to expect a path that it doesn't exist because the export template works based on versions. So when you click there on the download button, the reason why it doesn't show uh, the file even after you download it is because you're trying to export for a version that doesn't exist. So in this case, when the latest export template that I downloaded from the website was the 4.2.2 stable version, and then it saves everything just like it is on this file here. But uh, because the editor itself is one version above, because it's on the development version, because they're building from source, it expects a different path, which is this one. So all that I did was export the most recent one, and then I changed the name to this. And also, if you're gonna export to Windows, you need to download something called RC edit, and then you put the path there on the export as well. So I did, and also the other thing that I had to do was to create a scene. And a scene is just a different type of node that you create. So I didn't create the scene on the stuff that I had there in the beginning. So I just created a scene, and then you you just make that the main scene. Then you just go through the path of export there, and then it works. So the way that it works is that it's just the final product is just gonna be only the executable, which I think is very weird. And I want to understand more about this, but I'm not really sure how to go about searching. Because usually from the projects that I've seen, from most of the games, usually the way that is gonna work, if the game's not distributed by Steam or other third-party service, the way that it's gonna work is that you're gonna have the application executable, and then you're gonna have a bunch of different files, sometimes for databases and a bunch of DLLs, and sometimes other types of files. So, and on Godot, if you follow these steps, you're only gonna get the executable, which is kind of weird to me because then, like the way you would distribute, as far as I understand now, is just by allowing people to download the executable somehow. But I don't think that makes a lot of sense, and but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know. So that's the thing. But I think that there should be a way to. So what I want to understand now is like I'm gonna search for the terms that I have on the GUI here on the source code, and then try to understand what is happening during this process. So just click on the project and then export. As far as I understand, so first you have to create a scene, which is just a type of node that's gonna have this extension. It's TSCN. So I don't know all the types you can create. I'm not really sure if you can search by extension here as well. Because I changed the name here. So I just follow the tutorial. It's very simple. But I forgot what kind of name you have to put here to find the things you use to create a scene. But the scene is just basically the main is a node, and then it's gonna be like a node where you put everything inside, obviously, because it's just the scene. So you create several of these different types of nodes, and that's going to be the whole application you're building. And then you have to select one of them, which is going to be the main one, which is the one that shows in the beginning on the initialization of the thing. I guess I can search for just gonna search for how to create the scene. But it's basically gonna be that file there. Just wanna see, remember what you have to search for there to find. Hmm. I guess you can put anything and then you just change the. Yeah. No. It doesn't really matter that much. I'm not that interested on this right now. Obviously, I'm gonna search for this later. I don't want to fuck it up actually. So if I start, it might fuck it up the other stuff. And I'm more focused on trying to understand the other stuff. So I'm just gonna leave it like this. But you can figure out how to. The tutorial watch basically he puts some stuff here and then he selects a node and then changes the name to player. And it's just gonna be a node. And then you put everything inside of this node, everything you want to show up on the scene. But what matters to me is the project, then export. Because as far as I understand, these are the steps you have to follow to uh, distribute the game. After you're done building everything, you select the main scene. The way you select the main scene is just by clicking play here, and then if you don't have the main scene, it's gonna uh, ask you to select one, and then you just put select current one, or you can just select whatever one you want. But basically, then here you add, and then you put the platform you want to export to, and there's some configurations that you can do here. And this is the thing that I'm trying to understand now. So I assume what is happening is that these are configurations to compile the engine for the project, and I want to clarify what is the difference between compiling from the source of from the source code, compiling the engine directly, and compiling the engine from here, which is going to generate the project. And the main difference is going to be obviously the files that it creates here. So this res is just a path to our project, and you can select when you create the project on the project manager, you can select where the project is going to be located. So it's any file you choose, but then for the engine, for the editor, it views the root path as this res thing here, and then all the files you create, the folder structure of the project is going to be on this folder. So I think that the downside from what I think about, like just from first principles, is that if you do it this way, where you create only one executable, then the problem is you lose flexibility, and then the problem means is worse to update the code. So it's the trade-off that I've seen some time ago that people talk about. The reason for dynamic linking libraries to exist is because they shortened the compilation time, because you can just, every time you update a DLL, you don't have to compile the whole thing. You can just change the DLL, and then I don't know the specifics, but that's pretty much the general thing, is that the advantage of having the DLLs is that it makes it faster to compile everything. So I imagine it has to do with the updates as well, and maybe other functionality in the way you evolve the game or the application you're going to do. It's going to depend on this structure. So I think that's the reason why the other AAA games or stuff like that has a bunch of files on the folder. So here you gain convenience because you're compiling everything, and then you're just exposing the executable for other people to download, but then you lose the flexibility. And I want to see if it's possible to. So I have to figure out what exactly is going on when it compiles. Like, are they just calling scones and then under the hood, and then like they're creating a process, then calling scones to compile, and passing these specifications here that you put as the template, and then using the configurations you have on the creates here on the project, and basically just compiling the engine again, and then creating another. The final executable is just going to be like, the main difference is just going to be the way that you compile with scones, the engine, or if it's something else. So I want to clarify how it works. Right after you go here, you just select the path you want to export at in the way that I'm doing now. And then I don't know what's the difference between these, but the one that I did that worked last time is just export project and then just creates the executable. I think export all, I had a problem. Not sure if it's gonna work now because it was saying that I was working also. Maybe after I did the changes there on the RC edit, it works. It was saying something that you didn't know whether it was a game or the editor or the project manager, but I guess it works now. And the way you put the RC, you just go editor settings and then you search for Windows, and then you put on the export here, select, and you just put the path where you downloaded the RC edit executable, and you can search on search engines, very easy to find. So I'm just gonna search for the keywords there. So the first one is just gonna be, I'm gonna go directly through this all, I think, because I wanna see. So I imagine that this, I have to clarify the paths. So and basically based on this stuff that I explained, the path is always going to be the standard path that they use there on the app data and username for Windows at least. And that's where I think that they're going to assume that the export templates are. So I think when you click on this add here, it's going to look for a directory inside of that folder, which is the folder you should have the export templates. And I think he's looking for the executable because the other experiment that I did before I solved was to just move this one. I created another folder, the same way that I've solved now, but I didn't put the export templates. I just moved the executables I have here for Windows into the other folder, just executables alone. And I think it wasn't working, but it was probably not working for other reasons. So because I think the other stuff here is related to the other platforms. So I think the main thing that matters for exporting to Windows is just having the executables here. So I think what happens when you click the add, it's just gonna look for the executable inside of this folder, based on the version that the version of Godot you're using. So because the dev version that I compiled the editor from source code, and that creates the 4.3 dev version of the editor GUI, which means that it expects the 4.3 dev on this folder here. So I think it's just looking for the current version, this name on this path here. There's always a standard for Godot, and selecting getting the executable from this path, which is the executable that is going to be the engine. But then I'm not really sure what happens after. So, or like, yeah, I have to clarify these differences. So it's probably going to be, it has to be on a other file. So probably what's going to happen is when you click the export, there's going to open something else, which is in another class. Editor exports and shortcuts. It's going to be kind of annoying to figure out, to be honest. So I have to put the timer here. I don't think I'm going to save this whole time, but I'll do 2 hours and then I'll see if I still want to go after this. So the annoying part's going to be to figure out. Actually, I should probably close everything. So I'm gonna close everything first. Then I open the editor node, CPP, so I don't get confused. And search for this. Let's see. So the first one is the path we probably use. So actually, it's the whole thing here. Probably they use this to subscribe on the database. Command palettes. So it's storing the commands on this editor command palette. And there's another class there that it uses to manage the docs. So I think that's how they are doing. They're using some classes to manage everything. And then the other classes are the GUI elements inside of the main ones. So I'm gonna own this one. Let me. So this returns a command which is gonna be destruct. Actually, let's return the command. I think I was looking into the other function. It returns a reference to this shortcut struct. Name. I was looking to this one. So this one just subscribes the commands into the commands on this class here, which is probably just pushing to a vector. And then it stores the command as this reference to shortcut and returns the reference. Editor settings, got shortcuts. So this returns editor settings. Already. Actually, it has to return a reference to the shortcut. Or does it have to return? Maybe this, because the reference class is the custom, the way that I'm looking at it is a custom pointer or custom reference that they created. Maybe it just has to return the shortcut. Like here. Oh no, it does return the. Oh, so I guess this function returns the reference to the shortcut. So the editor settings, they probably save everything. So let me think about this. So it's setting the name on this input map, which is a class that they use to manage the inputs. And the events just gonna be this thing. So it passes the events inside. Which is something that comes from the input maps. So it's a linked list of references to input events, which makes sense. So I think an easy way to think about this is just a custom share pointer. So it's a linked list of share pointers. Obviously, it's not going to be the same, but just to make it easier to think about. And then it's iterating over this, getting each event, and then pushing on this thing. So the shortcuts is gonna host the events from the inputs, but I don't understand why they do this. Just scanning the value. Oh, it's because they're getting just for the name. So the input map has all the events for the whole thing, I think. And this one probably just returns the ones related to the should whatever one you want here. Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna close everything. It's already lost. I remember seeing this one yesterday. It just creates the item. I was just building this stuff with the information and it's pushing on this. So pop-up menu is the main class there, I think. Yeah, this one. So this one manages the events. So it's adding the item in this class here. So the question is what happens? So I'm gonna write this stuff now. So what happens when you click the thing? Maybe this one is not that interesting. Maybe I should look for the other ones. Actually, now that I think about it, it makes more sense. So I'm gonna spend some time on this one, but I think it makes more sense to click. The problem is that this is gonna be after the ad here, and I didn't find the ad there. So I have to find what class is responsible for creating this GUI element here. Then once I find that, then I can find the ad, and then because the ad's gonna allow me to understand. This GUI element in general is gonna allow me to understand how. Well, maybe I should look for the message. So one thing that I can do is just change the name there so the message shows up. Maybe I wrote it down here. Oh, was the other message that was showing at some points. That I fixed one of the errors and then this one showed up. But I think this one is not. So what I'm gonna do is change the name of the thing there. I'm just gonna close the other stuff. Not sure if I'm gonna have to restart. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna search for this stuff here. I think that's easier. So let me think about. Now, what I want to understand is what happens after you click on the. So first, what is the logic that is looking for? How are they looking for the whatever they need to export, which is the first step there. So I think so first, I'm gonna write down. And this is the first thing, export templates. And once you have the exports, uh, how are they using the options and other configurations. And yeah, I think that this is the main thing. So once I understand how they build the what exactly is happening when they build, then I can try to build from the code directly without using the GUI. I think that's what I'm trying to do. And I think that so it would be good that like the thing that I was thinking about that I said before about the DLLs. I think that probably there is a way, but the thing that I'm struggling with is searching for thinking about search terms to study how usually the AAA games do it, like why the file, the folder formats the way that it is. Like why do they have DLLs and other stuff, and what is the benefit of that? Because obviously, if they do it like this, there must be a reason. So even if it's not a good reason, I assume that probably it is a good reason because they probably have a lot of experience building games. So I want you to understand more why they do things the way that they do, and basically bridge the gap. So Godot, I think, is one end of the spectrum. They are probably on the other one, or maybe closer to the middle. And then I want to see from the codes on Godot if there's a way to, because I also want to understand how the files that make up what the game is actually interact with the engine. Like, what exactly is necessary apart from the engine to create the game? Is it just the files here? That's kind of the logic that I want to clarify. So I'm gonna search for this. It's probably on another file. It should be. So I obviously can search here as well. So they're using this class to do that stuff. I guess it's the best thing to do is just to study this class then. It's probably this, the functionality is going to be related to this, but I assume that it's going to be related to the other stuff. So they save the path on the editor's path, which is the template path. So this is going to be the one that I'm going to put a breakpoint here. Yeah, so this is the line that searches for the current version. That's the thing. So I assume that this path is going to be the one that usually things are saved at. And the template file name is going to be the... So let me... so I'm going to write down this function to look on the other one, just see what the template file name is going to be. How do they determine that? I think it has to be the executable there, I think. It's the only thing that makes sense, because there isn't anything else related to Windows. So I don't understand what they mean by template name, but maybe something else. So I'm thinking about so I don't get lost, because I'm gonna have to go back and forth between files probably, and I'm gonna have to see. So yeah, how do they build the paths? So I'm trying to think about, because I remember from the previous times that I stepped through the code that there is a lot of stuff related to this. Maybe not a lot of stuff, but some stuff related to this standard path where they save things, and I want to understand why do they choose that path specifically to save everything. Because this is the thing, but I think that this is probably something similar on all games. I think because I don't understand very well, but I think that the registry in Windows is where it's like kind of a database for Windows where they search variables on the system, so environment variables. they save the variables on the registry, and that's the reason why you need to use that RC edit thing there. And there's these other paths where probably you always, like, it's a standard where you always put stuff that Windows is gonna search for on runtime. So, but I think that path is just like arbitrarily selected by them as well. So I don't like this that much because then like what it means is that if you create a game on Godot, it's always gonna be the same on the same path of the other games, and maybe you don't want that. So that's kind of the thing that I'm thinking about. So if I want to change the path, so I guess it's much better to. I'm gonna search this later. Search based on the path. Keywords are probably the same. And I assume that they're gonna use some Windows functionality to get the name of the user. And maybe they use to get the whole path, so not really sure, but so I'm gonna write these other ones here. Or maybe I should put some of the sub snaps here. Also, this is just a standard name. You got export templates there. Also, it's joining with the thing. So this is the one that's matters. So data there. Editor paths. So it's probably on the constructor of this thing. Data there, editor data, this blah blah blah. So this is gonna be the main path there. That is the standard one. So I guess from the project settings. So probably on the project settings, initialization is the place where they. So I'm gonna put a breakpoint there as well, and then I will just specify project data path. So when it's initializing the project settings, it's gonna initialize the path, I think. So it's gonna be ras and then gets. So this is the path of the project, not the standard path on the Windows. So that's probably not what I was thinking about. So let me think. So this is the export templates folder. Oh, so maybe it's a different thing. But then it's kind of weird because if you was like from what it's showing here is probably looking for a relative path when you save the project, where you save the project. But if that was the problem, then changing the name on the other path there wouldn't solve the thing. So I think it's searching for this, probably this path, and then exports, searching for the export templates here, I think probably. Export templates. Because I'm pretty sure that here doesn't have anything with this name. So maybe it looks for the export templates on the project, but then it tries to use the executable that is here to figure out. So the error is a little bit misleading there, I think. If that's the case. This export templates, path join current version, and then this. Oh, it's probably a folder then. The data there. How did I get you this one? So I have to understand how the data there is initialized. I think I'm confusing the classes. So it's joining the data there with this export templates folder. Oh no, this, yeah, it is folder, I think. And this is the thing that is confusing because it doesn't have. And then it's gonna be from the data dir path to export templates, and then the data dir is probably the Godot thing there. Then joins with the current version and with the template. So it's data dir, then exports folder, then current version, then template file name, which is gonna be from here. So, but I don't remember how they got here. Oh, it's from here. Yeah. So this is the project data path. That is the executable path. Oh, so it's not self-contained. So I guess there's two options. So the case that I met is probably this one. I'm gonna obviously put the breakpoints there. I put here on the project settings constructor. I think it's starting to understand. So if you have this self-contained equals true here, so either if you're on Mac OS, it's going to be self-contained. So it's a different way to search for the path. Because here, it probably it starts as false. Either if you have the executable or if you have this extension here, or this file on the executable path, which is the base here, which is the. So I'm not really sure because OS is probably the path from the binary where the final executable is for the engine and not the project. I think this is the path for the final engine, which in my case would be the binary folder, like the Bing folder here, I think. So I think it looks for this and gets the base dir of this executable here. And the project data dir is going to be whatever you selected when you're on the project manager, which in my case is the experiment folder, I think. It's checking just for this executable path, and if it is, if it has this thing here, or actually if the directory, so it creates a directory for our path. So if where you have the engine executable has this file here, then it means that it's self-contained. Or if you're on Mac OS, I think. So in my case, it's not going to be that. So if that's the case, then it's going to look for the data dir path in the data path, which is the executable path. But if it's not, it's going to use this function, which calls the OS to get. So it's on the OS that they are going to set on the OS class initialization, probably. That's weird. Just a dot. That doesn't make any sense. Godot dir name. But I think it is on the OS that initializes the. Or something related to the OS. This file was generated probably with the build system. I remember this. Doesn't have anything. So it has to be somewhere else that initializes the. I think it is on this class, but probably somewhere else. Let me go back to this one. So you have data path, which is a dot, and then data there is just gonna join that with Godot. This is gonna be dot Godot on data path, e.g. on Linux or Mac OS. But it doesn't seem that it's searching for that or creating or anything related to that path on the app data roaming thing. I think this stuff is more related to where you decide to create a project from the project manager. It's from the project. Oh, maybe if I go to, yeah, so I think it is on the other one, but I just remember that there are other levels there. I forgot that is not everything. So probably the roots of the thing is this thing here. So yeah, I think it makes sense. So it is this path here, because I forgot that I was already on the thing. So when it gets the data, there is probably this path here, and then it's gonna join the export templates. Then it has the version, and then it looks for the other. So I guess the file name there that it calls on the function is gonna depend on the what kind of where do you want to export the thing to. And so here the export templates there is gonna be that one. The data there is the one that's was looking. I can see from here, so I'm gonna look for this later. I was looking on the constructor now. So data there joins this, which is the folder that has the versions, export templates. So it is the path that I was looking at there. And this is from the version is gonna be the one. So this is the one that I was getting problems with there. So it's probably an issue with the build system. Maybe it's not an issue because it's supposed to be like this, because if you're gonna build from source, the version is supposed to be one more than the version that is released, so it makes sense. But then it creates this problem where it's gonna look for a version that doesn't exist there. It's this one. Yeah, so this is the thing here. And this file gets generated on the build time. So it's a problem with the build system. Yeah, this file is generated. So it's going to use the information from this file to build the path there relative to the export templates, which is this path here. So when you build from source and then you download the export template from the website, there's this mismatch between the version that it builds from here and the one that you have downloaded here. Because probably when you, obviously when you click there on the GUI to download the export, so you download from the website is another file that you download, and then from the GUI you select that file. And I guess under the hood, what's gonna happen is just Godot's gonna extract all this stuff on this path here. So the file is just the compressed format of all this other stuff. And then when you click on the GUI to download the file, it just puts everything here. And then it's on the code, it's looking for the version, but it doesn't exist. So the data, I'm not gonna spend time figuring out, but maybe I should actually. Sure. Yeah, but I think it's not that important now, but it's probably something that I have to change, I think. But I don't think it matters that much. Because if I understand how they do it, how like what is going on with their builds, then I can just change and do my own way. I don't have to create the export thing that they create there. So I think it doesn't matter. So I'm just not gonna focus on this. So the main thing that I have to understand is how do they get the data there, and it's gonna be on the constructor. And it has to do with the project settings, I think. And it has to do with the OS as well. But yeah, the thing is that on the constructor of the OS, it doesn't have anything, so it has to be somewhere else where. So maybe I should just look for these functions here. Just see if there's anything related to paths and then just put breakpoints on them. I think it makes sense to be the OS, or maybe it's OS Windows, because this is the base. Because obviously it's going to depend on the OS, which kind of path they put the files at. And I think it's just an arbitrary choice, but it's probably like following the same logic that the other projects follow, where they usually put the, because on the roaming there, the roaming path, usually there's a bunch of other data from other applications. So I think it's just a standard path that's people put data on Windows, and the other operation systems is going to be different. So this is the one probably. Oh, but this is just a dot, so it doesn't make sense. I guess I can put. This is like where it gets confusing, because the RAS is supposed to be the path you put the project at, but the other stuff is related to the standard path. So I don't understand very well how they are related usually. Let me think about this. So I guess what you need, obviously I don't know for sure, but I think what you need, so it is going to be this path that is going to use on the export there that you need to have, and this path only has the executable. So I think when you export the project, it has to be something related to the engine. Obviously, I can just run this. Hmm. So this is this is what's happening. It's just, but it's kind of weird because, so under the hood, what's probably happening is that they're using this executable here, and then they are just calling the executable with the path, and then the path to the data that you have on the project. So this is the bridge between the two. That's why it's related here. Because in one side, the Hampshire gets the directory where you're going to have the data for your game. And then on the other hand, they have to get the directory where usually this export stuff is going to be, obviously it's going to be different for the other systems, but I think it's pretty similar probably. So they are running this with and they're probably putting the the path on the command line somehow. So calling the executable with the path and then finding the directory where you have the data for the project. But the thing that don't make sense is that if they are running this, then because this is already supposed to be the compiled version, I think, of the engine. So how does that work? How are they using this to compile the thing? It doesn't have anything interesting. Let's gonna close. It doesn't look like it has anything interesting, so it's probably on the project settings. There's stuff related to the path. And this is interesting. So it's probably related to this function, I think. So they use this function to execute the. So this I think is gonna be related to the. I'm gonna put a breakpoint. Not really sure if it's this one, but I think it is. Because the model that I have in my mind is the one that I talked about now. That they first they search for the where the executable is at, which is gonna be on the standard path there on Windows, and then they call some function that is gonna use that path and then pass other arguments to. It's probably gonna pass the dash path thing, and then it's gonna pass put the path where the data for the game is at. But I don't understand what's like how does that create the final executable? Because that's supposed to run the game, not save the game. This is replacing, so this is the path. Sure. Path to the executable. I'm not gonna focus on this one. I think I'm gonna focus on the other one. I'm gonna spend some time thinking about what do I have to search here. I'm just gonna put breakpoint here. I'm gonna spend some time thinking about exactly what do I want to clarify. I'll be right back. So there are two things. One is the data there, and yeah, so this one. I'm not gonna erase this show here. The problem is like there's too many things she writes, and I don't wanna get confused. So this one I was gonna erase this one, but so data there. I'm not really sure if it's relevant or if it matters that much to understand exactly how this code works for what I'm trying to understand. The main thing is like bridging the gap between one path where they usually put like they send the export template thing and the path where the game data is located. So I guess the data there is so I have to understand the data there first. I'm gonna focus on this. So it comes from the OS. I'm just gonna ignore this stuff because I don't think it's the case that I'm looking at. So it's not gonna be here. And here it doesn't have anything related to the. So the thing that matters is the data there path. It's changing directory, making recursive. So it changes the directory to the data there. So the data there is the one that matters, and then it's gonna find if there is a export. It's gonna search if there is a exports template folder. Export templates. Config there. The weird thing is that I don't have these folders there. Actually, the only one that matters, like I just remember that the function is I'm not interested in the constructor, just understanding how they initialize the data dir path. So if it is self-contained, it's just gonna be on the executable, and then you put on the editor data folder. It's just gonna be on editor data. But it's weird because I don't know. It's right. I was confusing data path with data there. So it doesn't have anything here. So it's gonna be on this data path again. Oh, so it's here. So the dot's gonna be is just gonna be the dot Godot. So I think this is not the. It's very confusing, but like based on the functions there is gonna be the other one, like this path here. So yeah, I'm thinking that this is related to this path and not the other one. But if it is related to this path, then it's kind of confusing. Because it has to be related to this stuff as well. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. I'm pretty sure the data there is going to be that directory, but I still don't understand how it's going to be. I just go down. The thing is, I don't remember how I got to this place here. I have to remember because I just remember that I'm looking from the point of view of this phrase here that shows up there. So maybe I'm confusing the place that I'm starting with the functionality that I actually want to understand. So the main thing is to understand why does changing the name there on the standard path solves the message, the error message. Oh, and I got here because of the message that is here. Oh, so the template path, this path should be, because of the message that is showing, it should be this path here. The expected path. So this template path should be the path here. And if you remove, so the name is just going to be the name of the executable. This name here. And so it has to be here. So this has should be that path. But it's weird because those functions make it seem that maybe there is a Godot thing here. Oh yeah, yeah. But actually, because this is just Godot and it's not dot Godot. So it has to be this, but this is the thing here. And this is what's confusing because, oh, I guess is like it's probably not going to the right definition. Maybe that's the reason. So maybe if I search for OS Windows and then I get the get data path. Hmm. Yeah, there we go. And then, like this, but it's just gonna. Oh no, it's gonna return this one. So only returns the dots if it doesn't find. Yeah. So this is the function that gets the app data there. That's why it's confusing. So it's like the third or fourth time that I had a problem with this definition. And that and this is the issue. I think it's just because of the C++, the issue with types that I talked about. Because the function has to be called by from the base class because you don't know what kind of class it's going to be. And it's always going to be a derived class. So the implementation is going to depend on the derived class. But then you have a fallback, I think. on the base class. It just returns the dots. So this is the main function that they use to get the standard path now. And it's probably from Windows. So this is going to be app data. And this is probably from Windows. Yeah, and then it stores the environment. So it is a standard path, and it's because of the Windows function. So open to app data is usually a standard path, which is going to be, which I assume that it makes sense because there are other stuff on the roaming, or oh no, it's just the user, and then or maybe it's passing app data, so it's gonna find from app data. True. Later, but it's like I'm gonna look at this later probably when I step over it again. So it doesn't matter that much. Okay, so now that I understand this one, I have to understand how. So this is probably only related to the editor and not the engine itself. I think that makes more sense. So it only matters for this path only matters for the editor if you're using the editor. It doesn't matter for the engine. So what's the other question? Oh, so now I have to, I think what matters now is figuring out yeah, I have to search for this function here. So I have to think about where, so maybe on the class. It's this one. So I have to search for this one here. I fast changed. So probably something else initialize this class, I think. I'm gonna search on the thing here. So I want to understand how he selects this thing, because now I'm pretty sure that this is gonna be the name of the executable. Yeah, it's the whole name, I think, probably. Yeah, the whole, including the .x extension. But I want to understand. Maybe it doesn't matter actually. So yeah, it matters to see where this function is called, so I can see how it's going to be used later. So now I understand they're searching for the standard path there that is only relevant to the editor, and they do it based on the data dir, which is initialized on the constructor of this editor paths class, and it does that based on whatever OS you're using, which is going to be on that function that is derived from the OS base class, and each operational system is probably going to find a different path based on their internal libraries that they use to manage applications. And then it's usually going to be on the version, and then on the it's going to be this is going to join the export templates folder, and then it's going to search for the version. So if you get the error, then it's going to be because the version you're building Godot with, or the version that of the executable you're running, is different than the one that is looking for from the website. So if you download the older Godot version, and then I think, but I'm not really sure if you download from the website because I don't know. But it's probably going to be like that because, yeah, I think it makes sense. So if you download an older version of Godot, then it's just going to generate a file with the wrong version. And then if you download that, if there is a mismatch between the export templates you download from the website and the Godot executable you're using to open the editor, then you're gonna get this error because it looks for the wrong version. And if you're building from source, you're gonna have to manually change the name, I think. So I'm thinking whether or not it's worth it to spend time trying to see on the build system how do they generate the file, the version. I think it's probably not that important. So the main thing is gonna be now to figure out how do they use this later. Enter export. So this is the WAM. So it should be this one because it's the only one related to Windows. It is a plugin that they use. I have to see how they initialize the plugins. I guess I can search for them. Yeah, search for this class there on the editor node thing. So this is just gonna return the file probably. Hey man, what's up? I'm trying to understand how the exports in Godot work. So I'm gonna search for this. I'm not gonna try to understand everything here in this function. So I think that this function is just gonna create the. It's gonna call the other function, and it's just gonna get the. It's gonna depend, I think, on whatever operation system you're using, but it's just gonna. So the function, this function is gonna find this path here, and this is gonna be the name of the template path, and it's gonna depend on what arguments you pass here. And I think that's depending on what kind of operational system you're using is gonna call a different uh, thing. So I guess that it's gonna be the same. It's gonna be the same logic that everything else is. So there's probably a base class, a base abstract class that is editor, export, platform, and then you have derived classes for each operational system, and each one of them implements this export project, I think. And then this one is gonna find this folder, and then yeah, depending on the variables you pass here, is just gonna search for the name of the thing, which is gonna be the operational system and the architecture. And if you pass the debug, then it has debug. If not, it's release. So debug and release. And for Linux, it's probably something different because the name is different. For the other ones, it's not. since 3 years ago. I think that is 3 years, a little bit more than 3 years probably. So I guess I can search for this. I'm gonna search for this on the, but I think I already, maybe not. I already did search for this here. So if you don't have exports presets, so it's gonna depend on the exports preset file. This should be on the root folder of the project. Export presets. So I guess you have to create this configuration, and then they are parsing this somehow, or so in this function probably I don't understand very well. So. I started coding by personal interest, like self-taught. I had this open before. So I think when you click the add button there, it creates this exports precise configuration on the root of the project. I think that's probably what's happening. So this is from other steps, and then once you create this, it's gonna search for this. So, but I'm trying to understand how is this related to the other stuff. So based on the presets that it has here, obviously it's gonna change the search there on the other path. Yeah, so this is the configuration. So yeah, this stuff here, this file contains the configurations you put here. And so depending on the way that they parse the file, so I have to understand how they parse this file to, and then, yeah, but I'm not really sure if it matters that much. Let me remember what's exactly I'm trying to understand how they use the configuration to build. What happens after you click the export in the end there? So I think it does matter. So I understand the first part. Yeah, but I don't think it matters that much to understand the specifics. Probably what's gonna happen is that they use the editor paths class to get to the folder of the version there, where usually you're gonna put, at least on Windows, the it's probably executables, the other files as well. It's weird because the other ones are different, and you have this, like some of them is just the thing here. It doesn't have the, but I guess that on the code there they extract. If you don't have, if you didn't extract manually, they probably extract on the code. Yeah. And I guess it's just because it's a different way to manage. But the editor paths find this path or this path. Then this function here is gonna search for the name of the thing based on the configuration that you create. So if you create another configuration, it's just gonna search for the other file with the name. So the name of the platform is the one that matters probably. And if it doesn't have anything, then it's just gonna, or maybe it's the other way actually. If you have the configuration, then it searches based on that. And if you don't have it, then it calls the function. I think. What language do I recommend to start coding? Depends on what you want and how fast you wanna learn. Like why are you learning? Are you learning to get a job fast? Or are you learning it because you are curious about coding? Like what's the motivation? I think maybe like it's the wrong so I have to understand where this stuff is, or if it is this stuff. Let me go back again because I'm getting confused. So I'm just gonna search back. I'm gonna search based on the editor paths. But I do think that yeah, so let me write this down. So at some point, I think that the code here is gonna generate the exports preset file. The configurations on the exports UV are stored on the exports presets config file, the roots of your project. Actually, I'm put on the other thing. I want to study AI in uni, and the unis usually show Python, so I don't want to go there with nothing. And why do you want to study AI? Like, there's a book that's very good. It's called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I always talk about this book because I think it's probably one of the best books that I've read. And one of the principles is begin with the end in mind. So I always try to begin with the end in mind, like the principle says. So think about what you want to do, and then from there, you generate questions of how you're going to get there. So, and I think this is a problem because of the educational system. Like, because the educational system is built to, it's not built to teach you stuff, it's built to force you into a position. So, like the purpose of the education system is not to teach you things, it's to control you. So, if you want to teach, if you want to learn things, you have to uh, go from curiosity, in my opinion. And it's gonna be more effective because you're gonna learn based on what you actually want to do, not on what other people are telling you to do. And I think it's the same thing with money as well. So, like, for example, usually the people that make the most money are the ones that don't focus on making money because money is just a byproduct of what you're doing. So, I think people that usually are very good at what they do, they focus on what they want first and not on the means to get there. So the only way I'm gonna be able to tell you is if you tell me like what do you actually want to do, because I think it's counterproductive. Like what I can say to you is just learn Python because everyone uses AI. Everyone that builds AI uses Python. But I don't think that's like it's very productive to think this way because it matters much. It's a lot more important the way that you think than the stuff that you're gonna learn. Like so if I tell you to learn Python because that's what people use to build AI and that's what your university wants you to teach, so you pass the university, you're not going to be very productive when you're learning because you're learning for the wrong reasons. Like you're focusing on the results, on the stuff that you're going to build, or actually you're focusing on the tool and not the thing itself. Uh, so you're not focusing on the fundamental principles if you're coming from that position, I think. And usually, like, this is the thing, is because people don't understand. Is the exact same thing with the blockchain that happens. It's like people focus on the what coin is going up or down, but they don't focus on the fundamental principle of the thing. So I think most people nowadays probably want to learn AI because everything is going to be integrated with AI, but they are not thinking about like how this relates to the actual thing that they want as a byproduct of learning AI. Because AI is just it's not really a tool, but like it's not the thing itself probably that you want. I was gonna look into the editor paths. AI is AI is the only computer or coding based program at the unis I'm interested in. Hmm. Why though? Why are you interested in AI? Like forget about the university. Forget about everything. Like if it is just like you in the universe, what are you curious about? So I think this is probably gonna be a member variable, I think. But actually if it is a member variable, maybe it initializes on the as you initialize the editor node, you don't need to explicitly initialize, but it isn't. So it looks like it is not gonna be initialized on the constructor. So it's probably something else. Let me think about this. Because now it's kind of tricky because like I got here from that function that I think is on this class that uses the data there. So it's probably another class that is going to call the function from this class. I'm feeling dissatisfaction. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Usually there is a reason behind it. So I I can think about the only way that there isn't a reason behind it is because like you want to learn the thing for the thing, but yeah, I don't know. I think you could be successful at it. But why though? That's the thing. So I think that this kind of thinking is backwards because it's the same thing with money. It's like if you ask someone, like everyone will tell you that they want to make money, but if you're just focusing on making money, then it's outside of your control. You're not never gonna be. It's not something you can control. So the fundamental thing is the computation that creates the money. So it's the systems that create the money. And I think it's the same thing here with that you're saying. Like I want to do AI for the sake of AI. So I have to think about like why do they want? Yeah. So, but if you focus on making money, then you're not gonna be like you're thinking backwards. It's like playing poker and then focusing whether or not you're winning the hand. It doesn't work because whether you win the hand or not doesn't matter. What matters is the strategy. So, like, you have to think about. So the first question that I would ask myself in that scenario, if I want to learn AI, is why do I want to learn AI? So what is AI? Those kinds of questions. And it's usually going to be because of something else that you are curious about. And if it isn't of something because of something else, it means that someone else injected this idea into you that you want to learn AI, but you actually don't want to learn AI. Because there needs to be a reason, I think. Yeah, so yeah, the simple advice is just to learn Python, but I think it's not a very good way to think about it because it's probably gonna get frustrating. So I don't think I try not to think like this. I try to think more about the reason why I want to learn, because like if you think about if you want to learn, it's usually an indication that you just want to learn because that's what everyone else does, or because society is putting you into in that position where you have to learn. So it's like it's the same like with everything that people, and it's like the whole premise of the educational system is that they put you on a class and then they tell you what you should how you should think, and they're just brainwashing you. So like you have to, if you want to learn and be effective, I think from my perspective now, you have to forget about everything. So forget about all of this stuff and then think about what are you curious about? What do you want to build? Why do you want to build it? Like what is your curiosity? But if your curiosity is AI on itself, then yeah, maybe that's possible, but I just find it a little weird because yeah, but I don't remember how I learned because yeah, I don't think I learned AI that way. I already knew a bunch of stuff. So I think that is like missing a step because you're directly going to the AI part. But like there needs to be a train of thoughts that gets you curious on the AI in the first place. And I assume that just because of the way things are now, it's like a buzzword, so everyone gravitates towards that. And the same thing with crypto, a little bit uh, on the years. Not sure like recently that people were just like on the hype of what coin is gonna go up or on what coin is gonna go down. And that kind of mindset's always gonna lose because the person's not focusing on the fundamental principles. So they are gonna be carried away by the waves and they're not gonna be focused on the fundamental. It's the same thing with AI. So you need to focus on why AI is important in the first place. What do you know about that? Why are people using AI? And then you go from that position. And then because the thing is like there isn't a specific language about AI. It's like more fundamental than that. Just about computation and mathematics, and it's going to involve everything. So the most effective path is going to be to focus on the fundamental. You're always going to try to create a distinction between what's fundamental and what's superficial, and that's going to go beyond language. So in order to guide you through this process of going AI past the language, you have to, it's much better to start with a clear vision of why AI matters to you. So you're gonna be able to, you're gonna keep that in mind when you're learning the language, and you're not gonna be stuck on the how to build simple models using other people's library, because that's always gonna have, it's always gonna be limited. It's gonna depends on what other people do, and then you're gonna reach a wall that you can't get past, yeah? Because you're gonna be stuck on, you're not gonna be thinking on the fundamental thing. maybe focus on another profession after. Yeah. I guess I can look for. I mean, it's probably not gonna be. I was gonna search here. So if the editor path is not initialized on the editor node's constructor, then it's probably another class that is initialized on the editor node, and the editor path is initialized on that class. Oh, it does have here. Oh, that's it's not initializing the thing here. I also think I disagree with the. Maybe I'm wrong about this. It's very possible, but I think that it doesn't make any sense more to think about a career, or anything like that, because AI is gonna evolve so fast that it doesn't really matter that much. There isn't gonna be any specific career, I think, especially like it's because AI is gonna evolve so fast. So like I think it's just the wrong way to think about everything. It's just because it's a consequence of the synchronization of a network that society has. That's the reason, like, it does have a purpose to do things like this because you create a standard and then people follow. But is looking at things the backwards because you're focusing on you're training people to think about this way in like specific concept, let's say, which makes sense because that's how the human mind works. So, for example, you divide people in philosophy, mathematics, then psychology, stuff like that. But the universe doesn't work like this. The universe is everything is connected, and this is kind of the whole point. The whole problem is that because like almost is extremely difficult to test how good someone is at solving problems. The way that people do deal with this is just simplify everything and then create theoretical questions that don't matter and then not attached to reality, just to test whether or not you know something. But then there's this difference that these questions are irrelevant to how reality actually works because they are detached from it. It's just a and I really, for me personally, I really don't like this way of thinking. I think it's very counterproductive because you're not teaching people how to think. You're just teaching people how to follow instructions. And then this is the problem is because then nobody knows why they're learning things in the first place. Everyone learns since they are a kid that they should just sit down and listen and it doesn't make any sense because what actually matters is solving the real world problems. And in order to do that, you have to think about what the problems actually are and what you're curious about, and then reverse engineer from that point. And the reason why it's not like this is because you can't create a standard for everyone to learn if everyone begins with the end in mind, because then in the past you couldn't arrange classes, so you had to have physical professors, but nowadays is doesn't make any sense because we have the internet. So with the internet, there's a lot more customization that you can do, and then you can have standard classes just to for people to socialize, for example, to train, because that's usually the main point that people come up, like say, oh, but the college is important for socialization, which is a complete bullshit. The only reason why it exists is because everything's corrupt and because of bureaucracy. So people are slow, and AI is very fast, and internet is very fast. So like it shouldn't exist, but we're too slow to come up with solutions because and implement those solutions because it's going to involve politics and a bunch of things. So it doesn't make any sense nowadays to have the standard model of college where people go to the classroom because it's really dumb if you can learn everything on the internet. And then you can say like, but not everyone knows how to learn everything on the internet. But uh, all you have to do is just create a system where people can pay for assistance if they need, and then you can create a crowdfunding thing where if certain amount of people subscribe to that thing, then the class initialize and you hire someone that is specialized for that, and the class could be online as well, and then you can have private or classes in presence, let's say in physical presence for socialization things. So it doesn't make any sense to think about it this way. And if people are trained to think about it like this, where they're focusing on the grades that they have to match in order for them to be validated by the system that they are actually good at what they do, but that is not, in fact, is usually not the like is usually the complete opposite, where not the complete opposite, but yeah, like just because you have good grades or whatever, it doesn't mean that you're good at what you do, because what matters is the place you're coming from, not the thing you're doing. So it's not that lit code is bad. It doesn't matter whether you do lit code or whatever, because what's much more important is their mindsets, is the reason why you're doing things, not what you're doing. What you're doing doesn't matter. It's much more about why you're doing. So there are a lot of people that do lit code, for example, and I respect them, and because they are coming from the right place, because they are doing lit code because they want to improve themselves, and they view it as this infinite game where they're constantly challenging themselves to become better at what they do, but they're not doing it because they have to meet some certain criteria to get hired into Fang, which is thinking about completely backwards. Because then you don't even know why you're doing what you're doing. You're just trying to meet the standards, and you're always going to fail like that because things are always going to change, and you don't know anything that you're doing. You're just focusing on the result, which you can't control. It's much more productive to think about the process and why do you want to do things in the first place. And the reason why is usually going to be because you have a curiosity or something you're curious about. If you remove like all culture and everything, like just by the nature of you being a human being, you're going to have curiosities about the environment. So like, why does that thing works in the way that it does? Why this thing works in the way that it does? And then you follow that and then use the internet to answer your questions. So you come up with a bunch of questions and then you just explore your curiosity. And then each road of the thing, you're just going to gain more and more clarity. And that's going to allow you to understand the fundamental principles of what you're doing. And then it doesn't matter the specifics of what language should you learn or other stuff. This is much more important, the place you're coming from. I think people, but it is risky, but people should, like, who gives a fuck about college and grades? Just do the minimum, bare minimum to pass everything, and then just focus on your curiosity and building stuff. That's how I think about it, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so now I have to remember what I was doing here. So I forgot. There's other stuff that I want to say about these things, but like I'm not. Like my mind is, and it's kind of a weird day as well. But I'm thinking about all these things simultaneously, so it's kind of hard to right now to think about this stuff because like I'm trying to clarify this stuff here. But there are other stuff that I want to say about this, about the whole college thing. It's college and it's the fundamental thing is why people is that like there is a purpose for the system to be this way because there needs to be like stability. So it makes sense to create these standards, but from it at the same time it doesn't make sense. It's just a it's just because the system is not optimal, especially when you have the internet. Like it doesn't make any sense to force people to go to college. It doesn't like but yeah, I think that the core of the issue is that it's very hard to test whether or not someone knows something. Because what you're trying to test when you're hiring someone is how good are they at problem solving, and that's very difficult to reduce into metrics because you're gonna need an infinite amount of data to make that decision. Obviously, like it don't need you only need an infinite amount to if you wanna make the decision as best as you can. And maybe you don't need as much data if you just want to get an idea. But I think usually the way that people test other people nowadays is completely broken because it doesn't reflect on reality. It's like thinking backwards. So, like for example, if someone wants to build, wants to get hired to build a website using React, then why the fuck are asking them to reverse the string and whatever? So, like, it's not that the thing is not good, because it does help you to become better at what you do and thinking about. But the problem is that the person that is learning and that is the beginner, what matters to them is not learning how to implement an algorithm. That's like really a backwards way to think about it. What is much more important for the person is to understand the context of why that algorithm was invented in the first place. Like when it comes to the practice of the thing, why do algorithms and data structure matter? And the issue is that usually the people that are very good at those things, they are the ones that get hired or like they're doing a bunch of other things and they don't have time to teach and to create these other systems. And because yeah, and also because you don't have an incentive to do that because when you focus on this stuff that actually matters, most people are not going to listen. So because most people are guided by their limbic system, so which is just a desire to make money and not putting the work. And because of that, what's going to get the most views is not what is actually the stuff that matters, is the stuff that gets immediate gratification. So everyone's trying to hack everyone by selling them a dream of you don't have to work hard and then you can make a bunch of money. So usually the tutorials that get pushed by algorithms because that's what people are searching for are the ones that are related to, for example, it's just people explaining the syntax. Like, so in Python, you use this keyword and this keyword means this stuff. And it's a very bad way to learn from the beginning because this is not the stuff that matters if you want to become better. The stuff that matters is actually understanding why the syntax exists in the first place. So, and it is a very difficult thing to teach as well because you have to bridge the gap between what the syntax is and what created the syntax in the first place, which is the fundamentals of computer science. And you have to do that in a way that it doesn't overwhelm the person. So you're guiding them to a pathway from the high level to the lower level and increasing their clarity over the bridge, the gap between the two. And that's the stuff that matters. And then the algorithms and data structures is just going to be a consequence of that. And it's going to be related to whatever you want to do in practice. Not like I'm going to learn Belmont Ford because I'm going to have this interview and then I will have to pass. So it doesn't make any sense. you should think about, okay, so first, these are the fundamentals of computer science. The reason why I have the string like this is because a computer is just an information machine. It's just gonna manipulate zeros and ones, and then those zeros and ones are gonna interact with the uh, graphical user interface, which is the GUI, through the monitor, which is a display LED. There's gonna have 3 channels of colors, red, blue, and green. The combination of these colors for each pixel is gonna create the visualization you're seeing. And the reason why is because you can encode this logic on the hardware using transistors, and you create the first commands by combinatorial logic, and that's how it's just a standard that people create. There's nothing special about it. And then based on that standard, you can encode the coordination between different parts of the computer. That all they're just going to do, all they are doing is just doing calculations. And then based on that calculations, they change the flow of how the data moves throughout the hardware. And this changes what shows up on the pixels in the screen. And then from that combinatorial logic, you can create rule sets using the combinatorial logic, which encodes commands. You can use those commands to create rule sets, which is called a compiler, where you create the language, and the way you do that, and then you go on. The way you do that is through the grammar rules, and the grammar rules work based on transitions of states. And then you go on from this point of view, because now you have the end in mind. You understand why what is going on. And then from that point, you're going on the path where you're expanding your clarification over what's producing what's going on. And then you will have a much better understanding of whether or not you, the different ways you can use that thing and why that thing is valuable in the first place. And the reason why computers are valuable is because you can encode intelligence into them, and that's what matters. So, because the intelligence is decision making, and if you can design computer chips that use the transistors, which are made out of material or silicon or sand, pretty much. I forgot exactly the 2 materials that make up the logic gate, the transistor, which makes up the logic gate. But basically, you're just using the voltage of the universe, which is the differences in material that creates electrical current. And then based on that, you're going to create this informational system, which is a consequence of the logic gates. And based on that, you can create decisions. So what you can do with computers is just make matter intelligent by encoding information, by creating complex geometry on that piece of matter that determines what happens with the rest of the matter that is connected to that piece. And that's why AI is important, because it gives you the ability to manipulate reality by understanding how the geometrical structure of the hardware is going to be connected, or the geometrical structure of the hardware can change different different pieces of matter that are connected to it. And that happens through the informational system that you're manipulating. So from that point, then you think about, okay, so why is this useful? And the reason why it's useful is because intelligence is everything. It's the way that human beings do everything. So the main difference between a human being and the other animals is because you're intelligent, and intelligence is the ability to make decisions. So if you can automate the process of making decisions, and you can encode that into any piece of matter, you control the universe. And then from that place, you can derive what do you want to build with that. And obviously, it's going to be really hard, and you're going to have to spend a bunch of time. But it doesn't matter anyway, because what matters is the process, not the results. So as long as you are aligned with your values, you can never lose. Because what matters whether or not you're winning is not how many followers you have, or how much money you make, or how many degrees you have. It's about the actions you take every day, and whether or not they are aligned with the person you want to become. So you're detached from the results, which means that you're living on the present, which means you can't fail, because whatever happens is outside of your control. And because you don't have control over the results, that's the universe. So if you become homeless, it's just the universe. As long as you were doing everything that you could, then there's nothing you could do. By definition, there's nothing you could do about it, uh, about the outcome. So the only thing that matters is your actions. But people don't want to think like that because they don't want to do the work, and that's the reason why the system is the way that it is, because it offers the option for people to not to think on their own, and then they can follow the rules, but then they don't know why they're doing the stuff that they are doing. They're just being brainwashed by companies in order to do whatever the company wants, and they do that because they want to have sex and get validation. So it's basically why everyone does, or most people do what they do. And then they're going to be controlled, and they're going to lose in the long run because they don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. They're just chasing a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. So I'm going to search again for this stuff so I remember what function I called here. Is it the main thing that's... Oh, so it's not on this one? Where was... So I can search here. Also, it was on this one. Also, I got to the constructor because of this. So this is the one that matters, and it is the thing that I was talking about. So I have to... But the thing is, I couldn't find this. And that's the problem I was having. So the way that it's going to work is that it's going to call this function at some point there to find the template based on this path, which is going to be the one that I was showing. Just going to be this one, so it's going to return this path here, I think. Yeah, it returns it. So this is going to be the path for the template, which is the executable name. So it returns the executable that exists on this folder here. It's going to be the Windows. And then from that, so I have to think about what is the context that this is going to be called. So I think that the stuff that I'm interested in is obviously going to be after that. So, and this is also related to the configuration, the exports configuration. I don't remember how. Oh, no worries, man. Thank you. And the weird thing is that, so it's probably, but this is, I remember now that this was the one that I was. So the main function is from the base class with this one. This is going to return the path. Yes, this one calls the other one. So it's export project. That's... So I guess I have to understand this. But that it doesn't... I don't know what was that song. It doesn't matter because this is not on the constructor of the thing. It's on the fast changed. So I think that's the thing that I was trying to understand, because I have to, or maybe there's a, maybe I should search from the ads here, but I didn't find that as well. Let me think about what is the best way to search for this. Yeah, I have to figure out where the function is called. It has to be based on this name, because I have to see what happens after it calls this function, because this one is going to return that path, and then it's probably going to use this path to... I have to remember to clarify how the exports, because now I think I understand more how it works. So the main thing is the exports preset file there that I wrote, I think. And the configuration, its own. Configuration is on export GUI. No, the configuration on. The export give you a start on the export presets file at the root of the of your project. So I think that's the ads there probably. I think the ad creates the file probably. The exports. Maybe I should search for the exports presets name. And then I think he's gonna parse the file based on the configuration that you. So that function is probably related to creating the configuration. The editor paths is the one that is related to building the configuration, I think. That the other function uses the editor paths to get this thing. So I think when you, yeah, after you get the configuration, what matters is just the, like when you click this button here, you're just gonna probably parse the exports presets file that has all the configurations selected here, and then based on that, it's gonna create the command. So maybe if I maybe searching for the names is best thing to do. It's the same function. So it probably stores everything on this config thing here, config file. So the config is the thing that is probably using file access and dir access to save the file on the root of the project. It has to be after you, so, yeah, but maybe when you close here, if you change something, then it asks you, it asks whether or not you wanna save. I think that's, yeah, this is what's happening. So it's probably gonna call the editor save function at that point. It's gonna call config save, which is gonna save the exports preset. And it gets based on this preset here. The preset comes from the exports preset, which is a member variable of this thing. Yeah. And this is the other class I was looking at, I think. That calls the editor paths. Maybe not. I think it's another one. So it seems like, so probably should, like everything is on this function here. Everything related to this stuff. So I guess it must be, it probably calls this in the beginning there. It's the only thing that makes sense. Oh, so it is here actually. No, but here is just the enum. So I'm gonna search for this other one. Maybe before I do that, just look into the other files. If there's anything. I just update. I need to, maybe the best thing to do is just use SkyDraw to do the, like to, or maybe they have this on the documentation to get the relationship between the classes to clarify this. Because there's so many classes related to the exports. It's kind of, it's confusing to think about as I go over to see. But I am clarifying slowly how it works, I think. So like I'm kind of in the middle, I clarified, but I still don't know what happens after you click here. So now I understand how it works here, but I still don't understand what happens after and what happens before. So here is just determined by the exports config file. Exports presets file or config file. And then the other function that I was looking at the beginning is the one that uses editor's path to find the standard path on Windows where the export templates are going to be saved at. And when you download from the file, when you click here and manage and install from the file, what this is going to do is just going to install the folder on that path. Is the standard for Windows, which is this path. And then once you do that, you're going to have there. And so probably if you have the, so I guess I can try to add another one. And this web here. So let me see the ones that don't have. I have to change the name there. Let's see Mac OS. It's not here. Export for Universal or ARM64. I mean the project settings, rendering text. Yeah, so it is. Yeah, this is interesting because. So I guess it's because so it is the right path, but it's like I said before. So when you have the zip file in this folder, you can have the option to export the package or zip. That's why some of them are on the zip format and the other ones are the file. So I guess I think this is different on the platforms because of the way that the final thing is gonna be compiled with. I'm not really sure. Like, yeah, the thing is I have to clarify what happens after it gets all this stuff, like what commands is building and how is it using. But I think that what it makes sense is that it's gonna get the executable because that's how it works on Windows. And the only difference on the other ones is that it's just gonna use more data, so it stores everything on the. Maybe that's what's happening. Stores everything on the thing. And the message here is interesting because it means that it uses this part here communicates with or gets the. I think that this project settings thing is the thing that I saw in the function there. The first function that I looked at. So it looks for the project settings class to get the whole project settings. Then uses that and the export presets config file that has the configuration here, I think. Yeah, so the way that I'm thinking it works is it searches for this folder with the configurations, and if you have the folder, that's the first step, searches for that, and in the function that it searches for that, it's gonna call the other function that I was looking at. She's gonna call the editor, it's gonna use the editor paths to find this place here, and then it's looking for the if you have the executable in this folder or the zip, and if you have, then probably after it calls that function, it's gonna check to see if you have the necessary project settings depending on what kind of OS you're exporting to. And after it does all of that, then I'm not really sure if where the exports presets config is just related to the editor paths, I think, or yeah, I don't remember the class. But I think what it does probably is that it caches the thing on exports presets config on the first time that it's running, and then it's just gonna check to see whether or not you have the file. And if you have the file, it's just gonna use that. If you don't have the file, it's gonna use that function that I look at. I don't remember from which class, but the function that it creates a directory with the exports preset, or it creates the file. So the first time, because you don't have cached, it's gonna create the file, and then the second time you run, it's just gonna use that file to load the configuration you put here. Or maybe it updates the file, but that wouldn't make a lot of sense, I think. Maybe checks to see if the configuration's changed or not, and if it doesn't, then it uses the one you have. And then after that, it's probably gonna combine, it's gonna call the executable and use the configurations somehow. So the thing that I'm trying to clarify is what is the final command that happens, because I don't think it makes a lot of sense for, because I think that this is the engine. So this is the thing, like, because if it is the engine, then if it is the engine executable, it doesn't make sense that they compile the final project as an executable using the engine. I think that doesn't make a lot of sense. But they do need the engine, so yeah. So what I have to figure out is what is the function that calls the other function, but it's kind of weird because there is no place that I found there. Like there isn't. Oh, this one. So I'm gonna write all these functions and I'm gonna search them on the editor node file. Because I want to figure out where is the first time that it checks for this. And I think it has to be on the constructor of one of these classes. So the constructor probably either calls another class or initialize another class inside the constructor. Because the main thing that is happening on the constructor of the editor node is just initializing the classes and then adding some signals and stuff like that, or similar to that, and then creating the tree structure for the classes. So I think most of the functionality is going to happen inside of the constructor of the nodes. And then, yeah, the constructor of the editor path is the one that builds the data there. So, and the project settings I know is it loads like way earlier in the beginning. So I have to find the one that merges the two, which is going to be one of these editor exports. So to clarify more, I think I have to spend some time on SkyDraw, drawing the connection of all these editor export classes. So it's not very confusing. I think they probably have on the documentation, but it's going to be better to do on SkyDraw because then I can snap over or like search these terms and then yeah. So I'm gonna do this off stream, I think. So I'm gonna do this relationship between classes and then try to figure out. But I think I'm getting closer. So the main thing that I'm focused on now is figuring out. The main thing is just understand what happens when you do the export all, and I think that's probably a good idea. Right after I understand that, what is the final command that is being built, is if I either change the command to see what happens, or change the way that they are building the final command, or to implement the commands somewhere else, so I can see whether or not I can compile the project directly from the code instead of having to save here. Also, the other thing that is important to understand is what exactly is the with the export presence config file. I think this is at first it probably makes more sense to understand the beginning of where it comes from, and it's going to be confusing. I have to clarify the classes and then search because it isn't directly called on the editor, so I have to understand the path of execution until the point where it calls the function that I was looking at that from the error there. And once I clarify that, it probably is easier to just search again from this point of the project, but it's going to be a little bit annoying. So the project export. So search for this keyword on the, or go from the constructor of the class that creates this GUI element here, these options here. Then follow the execution from that to get to this point, because that is going to be on the constructor of the button there that creates this GUI element. Probably that is going to call that other function. I think that's what makes sense. So inside of the function, it's probably going to call to see, or maybe it doesn't call in the beginning. Maybe it's the add because, yeah, at first it's blank here. So it's probably the add button here. But then the other ones are going to initialize that, obviously. So this button here is probably the one that calls the function that looks for the path, which looks for the executable, that is the export template. And probably creates the config as well. Yeah, so for the first time. So understanding that first, and then after I understand this, I search for the... And it's going to be easier to understand what happens later, because then obviously what happens later is going to be after the function is called. So I think once I understand the beginning path there, it's going to be easier. Oh, I'm going to write down here as well that the data or saves exports templates. I was going to put the name of the class, but just put the name of the file. I forgot the name of the class. Yeah, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to do the scalar draw thing probably off stream. And the next time I'm just going to, if I haven't solved the thing off stream yet, I'm just going to figure out what is the final command that happens when you export, and how is that final command creating the executable. And once I figure that out, I can try to compile the game from code. That's the first thing that gonna try to do. So see you next time.